Hello and welcome back to the channel. We are going to get right into it this morning. I'm going to be talking about something very important. Is this the end game? Why are they calling this the end game? Are we in it? I believe we are. And I'm going to get into why I believe we are in the end game. I'm going to model this conversation or this topic after the game of chess. Okay, I'm going to model this after the game of chess because chess is very strategic. Now, I don't claim to be an expert in chess at all. Maybe my husband is, but not me. Okay, I'm still learning the game, but I know enough about chess to know that it's very strategic. And unlike checkers, you don't get all on the board and just start moving places or moving your pieces to places without thinking first. In chess, you have to think about every move you make, and you have to set it up in advance in some cases. Some moves are set up in advance, right? And also in chess, you have to kind of manipulate the moves of your opponent by using your pawns. Now, I want to talk about those pawns for a minute because that's what most of humanity is. Most of humanity functions as a pawn. Now, a pawn is somebody who is used basically to protect those at the top. You are there to guard and protect those at the top, but you are expendable. You are a weak piece to them, meaning you are nothing to them, nothing more than their protection. That's all they care about, is how are you going to protect and guard me and keep me in my rightful place, which is at the top. A pawn is one that is used to distract other players away from the players that are deemed important. Of course, there are levels of importance within the game of chess, pawns being at the bottom. But ultimately, all of the players on the board are there to protect those at the top, those in leadership. That's what your ultimate goal is. That's what your ultimate purpose is. The end game for you is the end, meaning you are captured. But as long as those at the top stay intact, that's all right. The pawns are the ones in society that actively create chaos. Or should I say, not create chaos, because those at the top in society create the chaos. But the pawns are the ones who keep the chaos at the forefront by giving it the attention that it needs. Once the chaos is created by those at the top, to manipulate the masses, it is the pawns that keep it at the forefront to keep you distracted, because in the game of chess, that is their job, to keep other players distracted, to protect those at the top. Now, I do have an audio file that I'm going to be sharing with you. It kind of reminds me of the game of chess because things are being done by different players, strategic moves by these people at the top, the world leaders. They're doing things, they're making moves, they're blocking, they're doing all kinds of things, but without their military force, which is the pawns, the population, and everything that goes to aid it, they'd literally be nothing. But the pawns give them the power they need, although the pawns themselves are considered to be very weak, or the smallest, least important in the minds of the leaders. Now, you are important in terms of giving them what they want, protecting them and keeping their machine going. But in their minds, you're not important. In other words, you have an expiration date. You see, I hope I'm explaining this in the best way possible. Is this the end game? And what parts do everyone play? Anyway, I want you all to listen at this audio file, because this audio file is going to describe some things that are happening in the current conflicts, right? And as you listen to some of the things, it kind of reminds me of how they are making moves. And we know that these moves cannot be made with any type of certainty unless they already have the stage set for things, or that they had plans for things, right? And their plans don't involve your victory in the end. Keep that in mind. Anyway, take a listen at this audio file, and I will be right back.
NATO leaders were united last week in their support for Ukraine's military and pursuit of new ways to economically punish Russia for its unprovoked invasion. President Vladimir Putin shows no sign of stopping, but his commanders hint they may downsize their objectives in response to Kyiv's stiff resistance. US and allied leaders in the Indo-Pacific should apply lessons from Ukraine, or they could find themselves facing a resurgent China empowered by a decade of gray zone belligerence. The Russian military is consolidating its gains in southeast Ukraine around Crimea and the Donbas region, two areas Moscow gained through an insurgency led by mercenaries and paramilitary troops. China is lifting a page from Moscow's playbook in the South China Sea, where it has built and armed artificial islands along international shipping lanes and flight paths, and within the economic exclusion zones of multiple Southeast Asian nations. By extending the reach of its air defenses and anti-ship missiles to the edges of its neighbors' airspace and territorial waters, Beijing could keep its opponents' ships in port and aircraft on the ground, giving China an advantage in any confrontation. And like Russia in eastern Ukraine, China uses its long-range weapons to protect its maritime militia and Coast Guard in the South and East China Sea as they harass rivals' navies, fishing fleets and shipping vessels. US and allied militaries have done little to confront or resist China's gray zone campaign. Freedom of navigation operations have failed to stop Beijing's growing control and influence in the region. The increased frequency of friendly carrier operations may be reassuring to US allies, but China's behavior is unchanged, and when the carriers leave, allies are once again on their own. The Pentagon released its new defense strategy this week, which highlights campaigning as one of its three main actions. Although the unclassified fact sheet is short on details, campaigning entails operations to undermine coercion of US allies, complicate adversary decision-making, and develop US and partner capabilities. Campaigning should be the centerpiece of US operations and deterrence. But as the Ukraine invasion shows, China is unlikely to be deterred by threats. The formidable Chinese military is close enough to targets like Taiwan that leaders in Beijing could be convinced they will succeed. And economic sanctions, while potentially damaging, will not hurt China like they do against Russia. The US military could more effectively deter China by mounting sustained operations that demonstrate US resolve, gauge Chinese responses, and refine US military capabilities and tactics. This approach to campaigning would tap into US advantages in areas that can impose reversible and deniable actions on China's gray zone efforts, such as electronic warfare and undersea warfare. The US military could use unmanned aircraft like the MQ-9B Reaper to conduct electronic warfare against China's South China Sea islands and maritime militia ships, jamming and deceiving their radars and radios, and gathering electronic intelligence for use in later confrontations. By using an unmanned aircraft, US commanders could accept the risk that an aircraft could be attacked, like the several MQ-9s lost in the Middle East to enemy fire. Undersea warfare offers ways for the US military to create deniable impacts against Chinese forces, and was used throughout the Cold War to send messages to Moscow regarding US resolve. In the South China Sea, US unmanned undersea vehicles could cut communication cables connecting China's islands to the mainland, foul dredges used to build and artificial features, and entangle or damage the propulsion systems of Coast Guard and militia ships. And if vehicles are captured, they would be an acceptable loss and US leaders could choose to claim or deny the operation. To prevent a replay of Ukraine in the Western Pacific, the United States and its allies will need to take a new approach to deterrence that prioritizes engagement and confrontation against hybrid aggression, rather than a goal-line defense that adversaries don't find credible. The new defense strategy may be a good step in that direction.
Okay, so I am going to point out some very significant things in this report that you just heard, which made me think of this as the end game, right? Very strategic moves being made. Just so you know, too, the media is one of the most significant pawns in this game, right? They're one of the most significant. They are high paid pawns, right? Those of you who live on Main Street, however, you are not a high paid pawn. You just do it for free, pretty much. You give them what they want for free. You just stay in line doing what it is you are supposed to do, which is to protect the machine. Okay. But anyway, back to this game that they are playing. When I saw this portion right here, I'm going to read this portion of the article that just kind of stuck out to me, using words like opponents. You see, okay. It's talking about China here. It says China is lifting a page from Moscow's playbook in the South China Sea, where it has built an armed artificial island along international, or armed artificial islands with an S, along international shipping lanes and flight paths, and within the economic exclusion zones of multiple Southeast Asian nations, by extending the reach of its air defenses and anti-ship missiles to the edges of its neighbors' airspaces and territorial waters. Beijing could keep its opponents' ships in port and aircraft on the ground, giving China an advantage in any confrontation. So China is setting the stage to give itself an advantage, right? China is setting the stage so that it will be victorious when it is all said and done. So this is what I mean when I say that this is like a game. While we are being distracted by Will Smith at the Oscars and the drama with him hitting Chris Rock, all of this other drama that's happening over here with all the Karen news and all of the outburst of people doing this and doing that, road rage. While we're distracted by all of those things, you have all of these nations, Russia, China, the US, the West in general, the United Nations. Everybody is setting the stage in this end game. Right? And now he goes on to say, and like Russia and Eastern Ukraine, China uses its long-range weapons to protect its maritime militia and Coast Guard in the South and East China Sea as they harass rivals, navies, fishing fleets, and shipping vessels. So it's like they are navigating the waters and the airspaces. They are setting up all kinds of strategic positions, right? They're doing all of this stuff because they are setting up the end game. You have Ukraine that is it under attack? Because from what I've heard, from what I've been hearing, it seems like Ukraine is winning. But anyway, all of this activity, right? All of this war, all of this going on while the pawns are being used. Will Smith is a high-paid pawn, y'all. He was used to distract you from all the strategic moves. Because at the end of the day, what happened at the Oscars is not going to affect your life, right? But all of these strategic moves being made by militaries, world powers, down the line, it will affect you and your life directly. Because all of the things that they are doing is in preparation for something much bigger than what we see happening right now. And see, that's what the masses don't get, because the pawns keep you occupied. It doesn't matter if it's a high paid or a low paid pawn. Will Smith is a pawn. The Oscars being used as a pawn, right? All of these celebrities, the little neighborhood scuffles, all of this stuff, right? Being used as pawns to distract you. But in the end, there is going to be conflict worldwide that everyone's going to be affected by. But the pawns have to keep you out of the game. They're keeping you out of the game by distracting you from the game. They got to keep you over here, keep your mind over there. Your mind has to stay over there so that they can put all their pieces in place. So you're actually part of the game, but you're part of the game that's used as a pawn to distract people from the important pieces, the important players. They have to set themselves up to get themselves to a certain place. They are trying to cross the board, but in order to do that, they need pawns to distract. They need other players to protect them. Everybody is there. Every other player on the board is there to protect those at the top. And every other player on the board is put into position where they have to sacrifice their own lives to keep those main players alive and afloat. So, you don't have to be a part of this game, though, in terms of being a pawn that's used. You don't have to be a part of it. I mean, ultimately, everything that happens within this game will affect everyone, but you don't have to be one of those pawns that they are using to advance themselves. That's essentially what's happening. This stuff is going down, y'all. This stuff is going down. We talk about food shortages. We talk about the chemtrails. One guy's out here selling things that are supposed to keep your mind sharp, against all the chemtrails and all this stuff. Endgame is set up to end everything, y'all. This is why they are using every avenue. They're using the media. They're contaminating the air. They're doing all of this stuff. They're coming up with this, that, and the third. They're coming up with diseases, things that are used to cause your mind to not be able to function and concentrate. Everything is being used. And while that's happening, you have another group of pawns over here keeping you entertained. They got to give you movies and television and music, all of this stuff to keep you entertained. The media gives you the lies that you need so that your mind is, just kind of in chaos, not knowing what's true and what's not. They give you the food that has the stuff in it that's mind altering in low enough doses to where you don't even know what's happening to you. They give you these nice fizzy beverages. You have no idea what the heck's in it, but you guzzle it down. That's why I say this end game is so strategic. But it's all meant for the protection of those at the top. But all of the pawns are considered the least on the board to the leaders. But they play the most important role, which is to distract the masses, to keep those at the top protected. Any of you who know the game of chess, tell me if there's anything that I have missed. I mean, I know about the other players and what they're doing. Everybody's guarding those at the top. I know that part. But those pawns, is more of them than any other player on the board. And those pawns, they are used as little distractors and deflectors. You see, they don't keep you on point at all. When something very important is coming up, the deflectors, here they are. The distractors, here they come. Those of you who know the game of chess, tell me some of the moves that are being made by the other players that you see in this real life game that we're in. Tell me some of those moves. Like I said, I am not an expert in chess by any means. I'm still learning, but I know that it's very strategic, and I know that those pawns are the main distractors on the board, right? And those other pieces, they have some moves that they make as well. But y'all tell me about those moves in the comment section. I just wanted to bring this to the forefront so people can wake the heck up. So folk can wake up. I'm looking at everything, y'all. I'm looking at real estate prices that are so ridiculous on junk properties. I'm like, man, everything is getting to the point where you cannot afford it. Things before, years before, that were so affordable, and I'm talking about used, broken down stuff. Now it's hard to get your hands on it. Inflation is so high right now, it's ridiculous. It is crazy right now out here. The price of food is through the roof, and people are still out here being distracted by pawns, deceiving and being deceived, because they are essentially making everybody into pawns. They have made as many pawns as they possibly could, because it's all about protecting them. All about protecting them. This is the end game, y'all. This is the end game. But unfortunately, some people are too distracted to understand where we are headed. All right, I'm done with this video. Please share your thoughts and your comments on this subject, especially those of you who are into the game of chess. Talk about some of those other moves that are being made by some of those other players, right? Talk about the deception, the maneuvering moves and the tricks, Talk about all of that. How everything is set up to guard those important pieces. You see, they don't view you as important, but you are important. You're important to them because you are their protection, but you're not important to them in their minds. Keep that part in mind. They try to make you think that, oh, we care about you. You're important to us. Your only importance to them is to protect them. That's it. Okay? Your importance to them is only because they see you as their protector, the one who's going to guard their system and their lives, right? But in their minds, you yourself, hey, we can replace you. If something happened to you, so what? You served your purpose. I'm finished with you now. Tell me what your thoughts are, y'all, in the comment section below. Keep it tight and keep it right, but until next time. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.